Welcome to episode 47 of the Princeton Podcast, produced by the podcast production team at HG Media, providing audio and video production services here in Princeton since 1999. In this episode, our Princeton Podcast host, Mayor Mark Freda, welcomed Bart Bronk, head of school at Hun School of Princeton. Bart describes Hun's rich history, founded by John Gale Hunn, a former Princeton professor, with a focus on individual mentorship. Bart details the school's mission to foster resilient character and joyful learning in students, preparing them for a diverse and changing world. He elaborates on the school's educational offerings from middle school to postgraduate levels, and its emphasis on interdisciplinary learning and skill development. Bart also touches on his own academic journey and vision for the Hun School. So without any further introduction, let's join our host, Mark Freda, and his guest, Bart Bronk, for episode 47 of the Princeton Podcast.
Bart, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
So let's start off by just asking you, when did you become the head of the school at Hun School?
Yeah, I've been the proud head of the Hun School for just over 5 months. So my first day in the office was July 5th, this past summer.
There we go. So can you just kind of give us, I hope most people in town are aware of the Hun School, but can you kind of give us a short history of the school?
Sure, happy to. So the school was founded by a Princeton professor named John Gale Hunn. He retired from the Princeton faculty in the 19 teens, and started a tutoring school. And so it was his vision that he would work one-on-one with students to help them apply to and succeed at Princeton University. So it was very natural for him to locate that school here in Princeton. So he started on Stockton Street, and the school existed there for almost 30 years, more than 30 years. At some point in the 20s, they acquired the current campus, the Edgerstone campus, just outside of town here, and started a junior school, and then the upper school moved from Stockton Street to Edgerstone in the 1940s, where the school has been ever since. What's retained, and along the way there was incorporations and headmasters, and it became the Hun School in honor of its founder. But what's been really retained, I think, over those now more than 110 years, is this notion of individual mentorship. And it still permeates the educational culture there today.
That's great. Thank you. So that kind of ties in. So today, what is the mission of the Hun School at Princeton today?
Yeah, the mission of the Hun School is to empower each student to thrive in a diverse and ever-changing world by nurturing resilient character, providing individual mentorship, and inspiring vigorous and joyful learning. And obviously you hear the echoes of John Gale Hunn's tutoring school in that individual mentorship. I love the focus on resilient character. I think too many schools today don't focus on resilience. And so it's an achievement culture that is, that can be toxic to young people. But if you focus on resilience, the ability to cope, the ability to hang in and persevere through difficulty, you turn out students that can really grapple with a complex world. And what really drew me to the school, I have to say, is the willingness to enshrine joyful learning in the mission statement. That's what I believe learning should be. I don't believe it should be rote exercises. I don't believe it should be sort of artificially rigorous bubbles to be filled. It should be this really transformational human experience. It should be joyful. That's what we try to achieve in the Hun classrooms.
Gee, I wish you were around when I was in high school.
Me too.
So you mentioned that there was a lower school or middle school and upper school. Can you kind of explain all of it, what that is?
Yeah, the junior school was retired, more than 50 years ago. And so today, the Hun School starts in the 6th grade. So there's a middle school, which is 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, contained in a lovely, warm, rich building. Strong program. The middle school just is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. So it launched in 1973. And then there's an upper school, and the upper school is grades 9 through 12, but the Hun School also has a few postgraduates, so students who are spending one additional year after graduating somewhere else to round out their experience, to gain they're often boarding students, to gain the opportunity to live away from home. Some of them are athletes that are hoping to get a little bigger and expand their college opportunities. So grades 6 through postgraduate, and it's both day and boarding. So we have about 121 boarding students, and the balance are day students.
Wow. Okay. So let me ask you, what is the balance of that? So you have the 121 facilities. Overall, what do you think?
Total enrollment this year is 690 students.
Wow.
So about 570 day students, about 120 boarders. That there is a boarding program at the heart of the school really creates benefits for all students. I really believe that, because what it means is that we have dozens of faculty members who live on campus. And so when you have teachers that live on campus, they're creating community and a community feel for everyone, for all the students they teach. Now the boarders are there, day in and day out. The day students come and go, but you'll often find day students who stay for dinner and into the evening for activities. So that there's a boarding program at the heart of the school, even though it's a smaller proportion of the students, I think creates a sense of community and home that Hun's really known for.
Right. So can we talk about the different areas of study that are offered at Hun? I think there's a wide variety of...
A full range. And if you saw the curriculum, both middle school and upper school, I think you'd be incredibly impressed with the range and depth of the classes that are offered. Certainly, at least on the surface, it's organized traditionally: English, math, history, science, modern and classical languages. And then there's a host of the arts, really rich as well. And then there are requirements, within those programs for graduation. But I think one of the things that's really purposeful at Hun is that it's not necessarily about content areas. It's about overarching skills. And so the school focuses, regardless of the discipline that you're in, the school focuses on building skills that are cross-disciplinary. So you think about things like creativity, you think about things like critical thinking. These are the skills that live at the heart of teaching and learning, whether it's an English seminar in Shakespeare or mythology or a science class in marine biology. It's the skills that matter most. But a really, really robust range of electives. And then there's an interdisciplinary studies department where students can, sort of look at ideas that really cross disciplines. And I had the opportunity to teach in that department in the first trimester. So I'm the proud teacher of a leadership seminar for sophomores. And again, that doesn't live within any department. It sort of lives across departments.
Right. So, I cheated and looked at the website a little bit. But I saw there's a section on like signature programs. So I don't know if that's some of what you just referred to, or that's on top of what you just referred to.
What I refer to, I think, is our signature approach. I think it's really lots of schools think about skills, but I think Hun's willingness to put them at the center of the educational experience and the center of language, in those classes. So the kids are sort of talking about the skills that they're developing, I think is a signature approach. In terms of signature programs, there are a few that are really exciting to me. Next term is an incredible program, and so that's the last 3 weeks of the school year. We send all of our upper school students, so all 570 upper school students out into the world. For 3-week immersive credit-bearing classes, interdisciplinary classes, through a focused lens. And so this coming May, students will be going to Barcelona to study the legacy of the '92 Olympics 30 years later. They'll be going to South Carolina to study the Gullah culture. They'll be going to Scandinavia to study the Nordic approach to living well, wellness and sort of humanity. The freshmen will be going all over New Jersey, studying themes like New Jersey icons, New Jersey legends, New Jersey East coasts. So their program is a little more regionally focused. But last spring, for example, Hun students traveled 50,000 miles and made the world their classroom. And so to sort of commit to a program like that, to allow every student to participate, to allow faculty to build these really immersive interdisciplinary learning experiences, it's a joyful way to end the school year. And and then the students come back to Hun and share what they've learned. We call it Nexpo. So that's a really, that's a signature program. It's 5 years old, and it's really reaching maturity now. And it's it's unlike anything I've seen in my career in education. Another interesting signature program is the Scholars Program, which allows students in 10th grade to identify an individual research tract. So if you're if you're a student who's particularly excited, let's say, about feminism in film, you can say, I'm going to develop a research question as it relates to feminism and how it's represented in film. And then within the classes I select, my junior and senior year, I'm going to have room to pursue that individual research and then do a capstone project in which I try to make a meaningful contribution to that academic dialogue, wherever that might be. Maybe that's giving a TED Talk or writing for a journal. And so students in the 10th grade, if they choose, have an opportunity to really customize their experience through 11th and 12th grade to study in depth a research topic that really excites them. So those are just a couple programs that excite me. I've created a next term. I should plug that. I'm doing a regional course called America's Pastime in the Garden State. So it's to explore the unique history and culture and business of baseball in New Jersey. And the kids keep asking, are we going to a Phillies game? And I'm like, nope. We'll go see the Somerset, Patriots. Yeah. We might see the Lakewood Blue Claws, but this is a New Jersey exercise. And it's been great, just preparing for that course. We're finding all sorts of, interesting stories. And so one of the questions was, if we wanted to think about the dead ball era, were the great players from New Jersey? And it turns out Goose Goslin, one of the legends of the dead ball era, was a New Jersey native. Yeah, Salem County.
Wow, that's great. Thank you. That's very interesting. Mm-hmm. So, okay, let's ask a little bit about you. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, I'm from Mount Laurel.
Way far away.
yeah. I grew up in Burlington County. Actually, I was born in Delaware County in Havertown, Pennsylvania. But when I was young, when I was 6 or 7 for first or second grade, we moved to Mount Laurel with my brother and I with my mom. She worked for the State Department of Education in Trenton, so she was taking the bus from the Morristown Mall into Trenton every day. And we were in Mount Laurel Public Schools. And as we grew and got older and needed a little more structure in our lives, she realized that, with her schedule, she wasn't able to provide it. So she chose an independent school for us, which was a small boys boarding school in Chester County, Pennsylvania. And that's where my independent school career began. So it was that choice that my mom made now 35 years ago that set the course, which ended with me, being at Hun. And in some ways, there's even some shared donor families between those two schools in a way that it feels sort of like, almost cosmic. But yeah, I'm from South Jersey. I think New Jersey's the greatest state in the world. My uncle, for a number of years, lived in Princeton Junction, so I'm pretty familiar with this part of the world, with Mercer County. So couldn't be happier to be back home.
Oh, that's great. So I imagine you were probably at some other schools before you came to Hun.
Yeah.
So a little bit about where you might have been.
Yeah. My career actually began in museums. So for the first 7 years of my career, I worked at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia.
There you go.
Home of the Giant Heart, and really thought I was going to be a museum professional maybe my whole life, and was having great success there. And then the head of the school that I had attended, the boys boarding school, it's called Church Farm School, called me up one day and said, I need you to be the director of admissions. And I said, no, I'm happy. I'm fulfilled in my museum life. And he said, in a very, head of school way, Mr. Bronk, I wasn't asking you. And so I agreed to go out, and he made the case that the school that had done so much for me needed someone to pay that forward. So off we moved to Chester County, Pennsylvania, and I was the director of admissions at the Church Farm School for 6 years. During that time, I got a graduate degree in educational leadership from Penn. I had decided I wanted to be a school leader. I fell in love with being a school professional. And then was ready for the next step, and it was one of those heartbreaking moments where it wasn't available at home. It wasn't available at the place that raised me. And so I had to be willing to go out and for a little bit of an adventure. And so I networked to a school in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, just outside the city of Detroit. Became the associate dean of faculty at University Liggett School, which is a pre-K to 12 independent school in beautiful Grosse Pointe, and one of the most historic schools in Michigan. And over the course of 10 years there, I was the dean of the faculty, chief operating officer, the provost, the interim head of school, and for 6 years the head of school. And so that was my most immediate career journey. But it was the experience of leading that school through the pandemic and the ways in which that isolated everyone, made us as a family decide it was time to come home. And so I began to look at schools in New Jersey. We really wanted to be sort of in the, I think of Philadelphia as sort of my home city. We wanted to be in the greater Philadelphia area, and to lead a school that was, that had a rich mission and was in a great place. And Hun happened to be looking. My predecessor, John Brome, had announced his retirement, and so I participated in that process and was really privileged to be selected in May of 2022 as the next head of school.
Yeah. Wow, what a journey. Good journey. So how's the transition from Michigan back to Jersey and to the life at Hun? How's that all going?
It's been great. It's funny. I actually wrote in my cover letter to Hun, I wanted to add some flavor. And I wanted to let him know, like, I'm from there. Like, I know. So I wrote, like, one of the things we missed in Michigan was Wawa. Like, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it in the world. It'd be a Saturday morning and we'd need half and half. And I'd say, this is a Wawa moment. I need a Wawa. I need to go get my half and half and a Sizzly and maybe some soft pretzels for later. And, in Michigan, you got to go into the grocery store and walk all the way to the back. But, that's sort of a funny way of saying it feels great to be home.
Yeah.
This part of the world just feels like home. We love the Jersey Shore. We love Ocean City. So to be, an hour and a half from there, we love the Philadelphia Phillies. So to be able to we've kept our Phillies tickets all these years that we were in Michigan. So to be able to use them now and go down and see Phillies games, to be able to access Manhattan and the incredible resources there, from an easy train ride. And then of course, Princeton, Princeton is an amazing place to live. I'm a runner, and I've fallen in love with the ways in which this is a runner friendly community. Obviously the excitement and the rich, restaurants and cultural destinations of downtown Princeton proper, and then the extended, sort of beautiful countryside. It's a really nice place to live. And we knew it for sure when our daughter, who's a sophomore at the University of Pennsylvania, and because of that feels a certain way about a certain institution here, and they're orange. She had a little chip on her shoulder when she first came to visit. She was the last of us to arrive in Princeton, and she spent 3 hours kind of wandering and shopping and seeing, and she's like, this town's pretty cool. Yeah. This town's pretty cool. So it's been great. Hun is an incredibly welcoming community, and so that piece of it, has been just awesome. The families, the alumni, the faculty and staff, they've wrapped their arms around us in ways that have made the transition really smooth. I love sunny winter days. It's pretty gray in the Midwest, and so that's been a nice transition as well. And we're excited. We're excited to continue exploring. We know. I know a bit about Princeton from my childhood and visiting family here, but I'm really excited to get to know this incredible place.
Yeah, well, thank you for all that. That's good.
Yeah,
it is a great place, I must admit. So obviously Hun students go on to colleges, and I'm sure that's, a big thing. Every high school likes to talk about how many of their kids went to college, et cetera. But I imagine a place like Hun, you have a pretty high rate of students that who want to go to college do go to college.
Yeah, it in almost every class, 100% of students will apply to and matriculate. Every once in a while, there's a student that chooses something different. Maybe it's a postgrad year, maybe it's a prep program to, if they can't get direct admission to a service academy. But yeah, 100% of seniors are applying to, a really diverse array of colleges and universities. And I think it's one of the things that's beautiful about being, Hun has enough students to have really rich programs, great sports teams. If you want to do something at Hun, it's there for you to do. Yeah. But we're also small enough to give really individualized attention. So those college conversations are happening starting in the 10th grade. Junior year, assigned an individual counselor. We have a bevy of counselors for a senior class that's only, in a typical year, 100, 125 students. And the key question is fit. It's not ranking, right? And I think one of the ways in which the college process at independent schools can be toxic is if it's like a race to ranking. If you want to study at an elite university, if you want to study at a highly selective university, Hun is going to support your journey there. If you're looking for a small liberal arts institution, if you're looking for a community that feels like Hun, where you're really well known and you have the ability to do interdisciplinary studies, that's going to be a different set of colleges. And so the key is having counselors who, A, really take the time to get to know you and understand what you're looking for. Maybe that's geographic, maybe that's programmatic, maybe it's driven by your athletic interests, and then are familiar with a range of incredible colleges and universities that can meet those needs and set you up to apply to a range of schools, one of which is going to be the right school for you. And so, yes, I could list all the names of the highly selective and the Ivies, but instead, I'd rather brag about the number of different schools that our students attend. And in a senior class of 125, it's not uncommon to have the number of different colleges and universities that students are matriculating to be in the 70s. Wow. And so that speaks to a college process that's really about finding the right fit. And that I think creates students that thrive when they get there, and that's what you want. We know the statistics that more than 50% of students will not finish at the college at which they start. And that's only going to get worse post-pandemic. And so to spend the time to find that fit is well invested.
Yeah. Wow. All right, so just changing up a little bit. So I know that Hun rents out facilities on the campus. So I thought I'd throw a plug in, and so people listening, you can tell what kind of things you do there.
Yeah, we have if you're interested in a really elegant dining experience, you could rent out Russell Hall, which is the original Edgerstone mansion that John Gale Hunn bought in 1926 and retains all of that charm. If you're interested in a great turf field, you could rent our stadium field, which has incredible stadium seating, and that facility is rented just about every weekend. And I know that because I run by it, and I'm thinking, there's a lot of noise on a December Saturday morning, and it's soccer teams or Special Olympics, a variety of programs rent our athletic spaces, a full gymnasium with 2 full basketball courts. And then a really beautiful performing arts center, the Breen Performing Arts Center, which is just a few years since we've totally renovated it. That's technologically advanced and seats over 300. And so that's a beautiful space as well. But yeah, and then we could be creative, right? We have 2 classroom buildings, which certainly in the summer there's availability there. Our kids come first, our program comes first, but we have lots of great partnerships, and that extends into the summer where there are groups that rent the boarding facilities. So we'll have a debate group comes in every summer and brings kids from all over the country and puts them in rooms and does work in our academic buildings. So, a really nice auxiliary program that can be catered to fit a lot of needs.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So where do you, so you're here 5 months, so let me ask you, where's Hun going over the next 5 years? Any thoughts on that yet, or too early to ask that?
It's a great question. I've cautioned, from the start. I cautioned even in my visit. I had been identified as the head in 2022, so I was the incoming head for a year. So I visited 4 or 5 times, and the kids love to ask that question. What are you going to change? What are you going to get rid of? What are you going to fix? And I've offered caution there because I think it's misguided to suggest that I can come in and in 5 months see a really discrete pathway for 5 years. So I've framed it with the community that my goals in this first year are to learn and to connect. So I want to learn as much as I can about the institution and connect with its people, kids, families, faculty and staff, alumni, an incredible board of trustees that sort of holds the strategic plan. That's their purview, so working with them on designing what's next. What I will tell you, Hun's in an incredibly strong place. It is a school that's thriving. We have more applicants than spots are available in almost every grade level. And so it's not an institution that it's not a rescue mission, right? This is a school that's, John Brome, my predecessor, did an incredible job over his 14 years taking Hun to a place of prominence. And so what's nice about that is it allows us as a leadership team and the board of trustees to think big, right? We don't have to solve an enrollment crisis. We don't have to solve a financial crisis. We don't have to, there's certainly facilities. There's always, big dreams about facilities, but there aren't any, sort of urgent facility needs. And so let's dream big. And I think Hun has maintained an innovative posture for a while. Innovation has become part of the Hun brand. And so that's the space I want to live in. If 10 years ago you had said that Hun was going to develop a program that sent every high school student across the world for 3 weeks in May, that would have sounded like a pipe dream. Yeah. And 5 years later, we're doing it. So what's next? What's the next term? What's the next idea that allows us to innovate while supporting the mission, right? The mission is our guidepost. We always want to focus on vigorous and joyful learning, individual mentorship, resilient character, preparing students to thrive in a really complex world. What are the innovative programs that allow us to do that? And if we live in that space, which I think we can, the future is incredibly bright. Yeah. And so I really think of it as a great to greater proposition. Hun's in a great place. There's not a ton that needs to be changed, but there's incredible opportunity to continue to innovate and make a really magical impact on the lives of the students that come to us.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. And it sounds realistic too. I mean, like you said, okay, I'm only here 5 months. I don't have the plan for the next 10 years yet.
I would be wary of a leader that came in and in 5 months said, I've got it all figured out. Yeah. And so, I'll tell you what sort of connecting and learning looks like, at least one way that it looks. So I have shadowed a student at every grade level in these first 5 months. So I have spent a day in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, all the way up through senior year. Wow. And when you follow a student and you sit next to that student, and I'm participating, right? I was playing goalie in middle school girls soccer practice. I participated in science labs. I really wanted to experience Hun through a student's eyes. Yeah. When you do that, you really get to understand that student experience. And for me, it was so affirming because all of these things I had come to learn about Hun and believe about Hun and the reason I chose Hun were happening. They were happening in those classrooms. I saw joyful learning. I saw vigorous learning. I saw individual mentorship. I saw happy kids. So that was a great process. And then, of course, as any leader, then you start to think about your questions. What made me wonder in the course of my day. And so I've said to the board, and actually in the first meeting, I said at the end of this first year, I may not have all the answers, but I'll be asking the right questions. Yeah. And then as a community, we can develop the answers to those.
That's great. Bart, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. This has been really interesting to hear so much more about the Hun School.
I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you for the invitation. We appreciate the partnership of Princeton in everything that we do. We always do our best to be one of Princeton's proud institutions. We'll continue to do that.
Thank you for joining us for the 47th episode of the Princeton Podcast, produced by the podcast production team at HG Media, providing audio and video production services here in Princeton since 1999. If you enjoyed this episode of the Princeton Podcast, please share it with your friends. Visit our website at princetonpodcast.com and be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to podcasts.